Hi, I'm Ben from 1 Mile at a Time, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most common misconceptions about credit scores, which is that applying for credit cards ruins your credit. First of all, if you're new to 1 Mile at a Time, we're all about luxury travel for less. So please subscribe and, please subscribe and, so if you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So personally, I have over 20 credit cards, and that's actually among the fewest cards I've had in a long time. I used to have over 30 credit cards. Now, when I talk to people about this, and I'm an introvert, so I don't talk to that many people, but in those few cases where I do, the first question I always get is, wait, doesn't that ruin your credit? Your credit score must be horrible. And the reality is exactly the opposite. My credit score is nearly perfect. It's in the top percentile. And obviously that throws off a lot of people for good reason, because we're taught, I think from a young age, that applying for credit cards is bad for you. So in this video, let's look more closely at what goes into your credit score and why applying for cards is good for you. Before I get too deep into this, I'd like to say that if you don't think you can use credit responsibly, in other words, if you don't think that you can pay off your balance in full each month, then this really isn't for you. While travel rewards are great, they will not be worth it if you're paying huge interest charges. So if you want tips for repairing your credit or being responsible there, you can click a link here. Also, full disclosure, through 1 Mile at a Time, we do receive commissions from some banks if you're approved for a credit card. We always try to give honest advice here. And of course, you don't have to use our links, but if you do, we do appreciate the support. So there are 5 main factors that go into your credit score. 35% of your credit score is your payment history. 30% of your credit score is your credit utilization. 15% of your credit score is your credit age. 10% of your credit score is the types of credit you use. And 10% of your credit score is your requests for new credit. Now let's talk about how having different cards impacts that, and also about how applying for cards impacts that. So let's start with the bad news, which is that roughly 10% of your credit score is made up of your credit inquiries, which is your request for new credit. This means that when you apply for a credit card, you can expect that your score may go down temporarily by about 2 points or so. Of course, the exact details will vary depending on the rest of your credit history. So that part of your credit score is adversely impacted by applying for cards. The good news is that virtually the rest of your credit score will go up the more cards you have, as counterintuitive as that may sound. So the single biggest thing that goes into your credit score is your payment history. That is 35% of your score. What this means is that if you make your payments on time, that's over 1/3 of your credit right there, that's perfect. If anything, actually having more cards helps you because you can demonstrate more often that you can use credit responsibly when you're making your payments on time. So by having more cards, you're showing a better payment history. The second biggest factor into your credit score is your credit utilization, and that makes up about 30% of your credit. Now this is the area that is most positively impacted by having a lot of credit cards. So the concept of credit utilization is that card issuers want that you don't utilize too much of your credit. Typically, I recommend don't use more than 30 to 40% of your credit. So what that means is, let's say you have a credit card and it has a $10,000 credit line. If you spend $9,000 on that card every month, you're using 90% of your credit. To banks, this seems really high risk because they're worried, okay, is this person using almost all of their credit? If we extend them more credit, will they be able to pay it back? That shows as high risk, and that's typically why you want to use no more than 30 to 40% of your credit. So this is where the real positive impact is if you have a lot of cards. Like I said, I have about 20 credit cards, actually more than 20 credit cards, and I have over $500,000 in available credit across all of those cards. Of course, I don't spend nearly that much every month, so I'm utilizing a tiny percentage of my available credit. So I use about, let's say, 1% of my credit if I'm spending $5,000 and I have $500,000 in available credit. To credit card companies, this looks great because they say, look, he has so much credit and he's not choosing to use all of it, he's being responsible. And believe it or not, this makes them more likely to extend you more credit in the future. So your score can potentially skyrocket if you go from just having 1 card to having 4 cards, and you're spending exactly the same amount because your utilization goes down by that much. So that is the single biggest tip to having a great credit score, is to not use too much of your credit. And again, this all goes out the window if you're not making your payments on time and if you can't use your credit responsibly, because then you end up in more trouble if you have more cards and you can't pay them on time. So the next biggest factor in your credit score is the average age of accounts. What credit card issuers want to see is that you're using cards long term. And so this is where it makes sense to have a balanced strategy. I have a lot of credit cards, some of them are new and some of them are old. So what I do is, I get some no annual fee cards that I hold on to long term that I've had for over a decade. And the reason I have them for that long is because it makes my average age of accounts older. The longer you show you're responsibly using your credit, the better in a position you're in and the higher your score will be. And the last 10% of your credit score is the types of credit you're using. So the question is, do you have loans, either with a car or a home? Do you have credit cards you're using responsibly? So just using it responsibly will show well. They actually want you to have loans because it shows that you can use them and you can use them responsibly. So to sum it up, what it comes down to is that 90% of your credit score is potentially improved by having more credit cards and using them responsibly with these tips. And the other 10% of your score, which is obviously a small fraction, goes down a little bit. Now, when those 2 points are taken off typically for a credit inquiry, that's very minor and that falls off your score after a while. So this is why so many of us who have dozens of cards actually have excellent credit scores, because if we're using it responsibly, it shouldn't matter what else we're doing. So just so you guys know, I'm not making this up. You can see here is my credit score, which is actually down a little bit compared to where it used to be because I've recently applied for cards, but it will go right back up again. And as you can see, just having a lot of cards and using them responsibly can be great for your credit score. And I've had a countless number of messages from readers who started off with credit scores in the low 700s, which is still decent, but not amazing. And after applying for a few cards, using them responsibly, and within a year or so, their credit scores shot up over 800. So this is something that works over and over and is proven to work. And really, it's the best way also to earn miles because you can get a lot of cards that earn you lots of points and you can improve your credit score. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, I'm so bad at scripts. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please subscribe. And also let me know what questions you have in the comments below. For more tips, check out onemileatatime.com.